Well, it's been longer than, I don't know, check my watch, 30 seconds since the last Xbox news update. And I wasn't planning on doing a third video, but the news items just keep a-rolling. If you've been keeping up with everything that happened so far, and I'll not recap the whole thing, you probably already know, but the ongoing furore around Xbox initially started with the price hikes relating to the Game Pass Ultimate tier going up to $30 a month or £22 in the UK. That blew up into a whole thing regarding Microsoft trying to do damage control, trying to issue statements, trying to justify the value itself, trying to say that, they're adding a Fortnite monthly pass, they're adding an Ubisoft Classics collection to the monthly fee, so it was worth the increased value. But a lot of people cancelled their Game Pass subscriptions, including myself. I included that in a previous video. The most recent thing that popped off across this weekend, though, is the ongoing or the continuation of various retailers pulling stock from shelves. This started with Costco last week. Then it was Sam's Club in the US. The Costco officially said they weren't going to be stocking Xboxes going forward. Sam's Club then did a huge clearance sale for the system, removing the systems from sale. Then this past weekend, Walmart and Target were targeted by various fans who took photos of empty store shelves, saying, putting out on social media that clearly these outlets were removing Xboxes. This prompted Microsoft to respond and say, no, that's not the case. Windows Central also did a report on it, with Microsoft trying to assure people that the systems would still be stocked, that they still had all these developing partnerships with these different retailers, and nothing's really going to change on that front. Then people started citing everything in regards to the Dreamcast and Sega, and how, you literally had Sega trying to reassure consumers at the beginning of 2001 in January, everything's going to be fine. They're still committing to the future of Sega hardware. Then they announced that they were pulling the Dreamcast altogether only 2 months later in March. And so there is that ongoing conversation surrounding, that idea that Microsoft does need to do right by their shareholders, does need to do right by consumer spending. However, alongside all of the reports of, Walmart and Target pulling their stock, we have a report from PowerUpGaming, who actually did the legwork and rang up various retailers across Europe, only to find that most countries had or have Xboxes out of stock. UK, Germany, and France stores do have Xbox consoles in stock, but some others that they checked included Spain, the Czech Republic, and Denmark, which have Xbox consoles listed as out of stock. The stores in Italy and Austria no longer have Xbox consoles in their Xbox products list. Microsoft's comment was Target and Walmart, among other retailers, remain committed partners for Xbox consoles, accessories, and gamers. And we also have Windows Central's Jez Corden noting in his various reports that it seems like Microsoft are just making Xboxes to order. They're not, they don't want to get caught in an overstock situation. They don't want to have too many, Xboxes on shelves, especially when the demand is this low. Even as I'm recording this, I just saw the report that Battlefield 6 sold 82% of its units on PS5 versus Xbox. So everything that's happening across the last couple of weeks is doing a lot of damage to the Xbox brand. And I do just find it fascinating. Myself and Tom Ryan Smith just did a podcast over on the What Culture Gaming feed, where we were both just weighing in as two, long-time huge fans of Xbox. Like, he still primarily plays on Xbox. I have an Xbox Series X, but my main system is a Switch, to be honest, my Switch 2, and then my PS5. But I just find it fascinating. If you grew up with Xbox, you remember the original days, that whole big conversation around, oh my God, it's a console with a hard drive, and then the 360 days, the Blades, Halo 3's launch, Gears of War, all that kind of stuff. For all of that to lead to actually we're just kind of going to fizzle out, and you watch Microsoft try and do a lot of the damage control and get on top of, replying to the idea of, the other week when it was posited that Xbox's next generation system was going to be cancelled, they immediately issued a counter statement. They said, no, we're fully committed to the future of Xbox hardware. Same thing this past weekend. Things blow up around a lack of stock around Walmart and Target. They immediately try and address it. Everything around the price hikes, though, minus Xbox's own Dustin Blackwell getting out there and trying to justify the cost, like I said earlier on, in regards to adding the Fortnite stuff and the Ubisoft Classics catalog. Microsoft are yet to really respond to it overall, but they clearly are listening because they're responding to everything else. If we start talking about, the likes of the stock stuff, the next generation Xbox console, what that thing's going to look like or whatever, they're immediately on the ball trying to reassure people that it's going to be okay. But the price hike stuff seems to be the one thing that they can't walk back. And to bring in a talking point from the second one of these videos that I did, because now we're doing a nice trilogy for these, which is ironic when it comes to Xbox, because I love me an Xbox trilogy, whether it's Mass Effect or Halo. We now have a trio of Xbox news videos. But to bring in one thing from last week, it seems like the pressure is on Xbox from Microsoft, with Microsoft's own CFO, Amy Hood, mentioning that they lost $300 million by not smart by having Call of Duty on Game Pass, by not focusing on individual unit sales across last year. And obviously the Activision Blizzard acquisition was one of the biggest deals in gaming history, $69 billion to get Call of Duty under the Xbox umbrella. However, it took forever for that thing to go through all the legal processes, and took it was a whole massaging of the image of Xbox, that general idea that the brand would not be a monopoly on the industry if they did manage to acquire something as big as Call of Duty. However, adding cards to their bottom line is the thing that saved the Xbox financials overall. And so it is that ongoing conversation of how do you use this massive property now that you've acquired it? Can you convince people to buy something like the Xbox Rogue Ally, which is their steering into portable gaming going forward, alongside which is now leaked as of Moore's Law is Dead's report on YouTube, talking about the fact that we're going to be getting a PlayStation 6 in 2027, and the next Xbox will also in theory be dropping around then as well. However, it's mentioned that the next Xbox is more powerful than the next PlayStation, the PlayStation 6. But I just think that it's like, what the hell do you even do? Like, if the bottom line is struggling so much that you're relying on microtransaction spending and the input of Call of Duty's expenditure to prop up the console business, what the hell do you do with the console itself? I don't feel like we have that many games that take full advantage of the Series X. Overall, and I think this will be the last video that I do on this, unless, even more happens. It's just, like I said, the whole thing is fascinating. I grew up being ride or die for Xbox. Absolutely loved my 360. I couldn't believe the direction they took the brand across the 2010s, and couldn't believe the lack of being able to turn it around come the Series X generation, and the way that things have rolled out across the 2020s. The fact that they are just incapable of nailing any one game, any one head-turning title that would make you glad you subscribed to Game Pass. It was quite an easy decision to fundamentally just give up on the monthly subscription model for Game Pass, because I'm not playing anywhere near as many games per month as I should be to justify that subscription cost. And as soon as they said that the prices were going to be going up, it was like, well, okay, I don't even get £3 worth out of this thing, or £2.20 out of this thing, as opposed to the £22, because it's only one game every few months that I get round to playing. Blueprints, Clair Obscur, the Oblivion remake, which I didn't even finish, etc. And I think the philosophy around, the mentality around Game Pass creates quite a discordant approach, where it's like, okay, what have you guys got for me this month? I don't really think I care about that. Let's try again next month, when you could just be saving the money instead. And I feel like a lot of people had to have that, honest conversation with themselves because of these price hikes, resulting in so many people canceling their subscriptions. But yeah, as I say, I do find the whole developing saga of Xbox to be fascinating. There are all the parallels with Sega and the Dreamcast, and the idea that Xbox could just become entirely a publishing wing of Microsoft, not worry about the hardware side of things, which, if hardware sales are anything to go by, that seems to be where they're going. I mean, they now own all of these licenses, all of these different properties, and all of these different video games and everything else. So why not just license that stuff out? If all you care about is maintaining the bottom line and making sure as much money is coming in as possible, then you steer into the likes of what happened with Forza Horizon 5 on PlayStation, selling like 1 million copies in the first week or so, and just start doing everything multi-platform. Do away with the hardware that clearly no one is buying in the first place, and just focus on being a multi-platform publisher like Sega. The only difference is when Sega went multi-platform and started, putting Sonic and Smash Brothers and all that kind of stuff, everyone was glad to see it. Whether there's any goodwill left in the Xbox brand is over to you.